Grandpa used to tell some big old tales about barn raising, hay season, working on the farm. Spoke of folks joining hands, working side by side. Honest labor, shared local favors, getting done what needed done. Everyone was family. He often said, I do believe we need each other. If we can work together, we can be the change we need to see. Grandma, she told fancy stories too, about washing, drying, spring house cleaning too. Spoke of women's gatherings and quilting bees. Honest labor, shared local favors, getting done what needed done. Everyone was family.
I'm Sharon Denham. I'm the project director for the Vulnerable Population Project, where we're aiming to prevent type 2 diabetes in rural Appalachian counties. We're working in 3 different regions, Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia, and in Mississippi. What we have found over the last few years is that the rates for diabetes in this region are higher than in any other geographical area in the United States. The problem of diabetes is often related to or linked with obesity and physical inactivity. And what we have seen by looking at the maps from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is that our obesity rates are some of the highest in the whole country. Many people, up to a third of the population, are actually overweight or obese. This is a major concern.
Their diets are not what we would experience. I've often said that many times, leaving my school every day, and that the best meal the kids got that day was probably at school.
Mm-hmm. The Appalachian lifestyle was very different than what we have now in years gone by. In fact, people ate big meals, much like they do today, but they went outside and worked. They worked hard. They burned up those calories. Today's people, we eat those big meals. Those portion sizes are pretty large. We consume a lot of empty calories, and then we sit. We sit for long periods of time, often not realizing what we're doing to our bodies. We need to begin thinking about how do we become more active? How do we get outside and do some planned activity? And it has to be planned these days because our lifestyles mostly just allow us to sit with everything that we do. And so burning up those calories is something we have to think about in the plans that we create for each and every day.
So we recognize in the schools that problem exists. The obesity, and Ohio finally over the last, probably over the last 5 to 10 years is becoming a goal to start addressing more of the health needs of students with the mass body index screenings, the diabetics, the obesity problem we're having. They're beginning to come forward, mm-hmm. and seems like there is some concerns that these problems are going to have to be addressed.
And it's so simple, but it's so simple about how to solve diabetes. It's so simple how to solve obesity. It's so simple how to solve some of our pain problems that we all are suffering from. But we've got to make the choice to make that difference in our lifestyle. And if we don't do it, it ain't going to happen.
My mother and my dad both had diabetes. My husband has diabetes. Most of his family had diabetes, and I am pre-diabetic. So I'm very careful to watch what I eat, and I'm very active, and I do monitor my blood sugar pretty often.
No, my husband, in 2 weeks after I was diagnosed with diabetes, my husband was diagnosed with it.
Oh, really?
He isn't on insulin. Mine was worse than his. But he is on the metformin and glipizide, the same thing I'm on.
Probably a month before he was diagnosed, I was just speaking with a parent, and I asked her the same question you asked me. How did you even come to realize? And she discussed bedwetting, and she discussed this constant hunger that he had, however he was losing weight. And I also have a grandfather who, in his family, I think there were 10 children, and if I'm not mistaken, all 10 had type 2 diabetes. So that had always been in the back of my mind, that it was a possibility. And he had one night of bedwetting, and the next day I went and bought my own meter. And when I spoke to my husband about it, he told me I was borrowing trouble. So I just kind of left it upon myself. We had went to the mall that day, and all he wanted was bottled water, no toys. So when I bought the meter, he was 477. That was his first reading. And from there, we went to the hospital and were diagnosed. And in 3 days, we learned how to treat something that's going to be with us forever.
Because I was so young when I was diagnosed, there's never a point in life that I don't remember being diabetic. And therefore, during that entire time, my family was diabetic also.
There's a lot more people that has it than you think until you are with a group and you hear other people talking that they have it, and you're surprised that many people do have it.
My mother had diabetes before she passed.
My grandmother was a diabetic, and I do have a cousin which is type 1.
I have a daughter that is a diabetic. Both my grandmothers were diabetic, and my father is oldest of 12 children. The last 4 are insulin-dependent diabetic.
5 brothers, 7 sisters. Well, I'm pretty sure one of my sisters is 87. From the way they talk and how she died and so forth. Did they have diabetes?
And then I have a granddaughter that I think is a diabetic, and she will not be tested.
Well, my father was a diabetic, and he was insulin dependent as far back as I can remember. And most of his children are diabetics too. I think maybe there's one of us that's not.
Wow.
There's 6 kids in all.
And you all
5
have
with diabetes.
My grandmother had diabetes. She had her legs removed. I've had several aunts that had diabetes. I've got several cousins that have diabetes. And I know it's a very serious problem. I have a very good friend that has diabetes.
As a nurse, I never thought I would do a great job handling a chronic, what you would call illness. Now, I don't feel ill at all. In fact, I feel better than I've felt in years. I never thought I'd be able to handle a chronic illness, but I'm doing fabulous with it. In fact, my husband tells me I'm OCD with it. So I think just knowing that I have to deal with it for the rest of my life is what really keeps me going. And
about 3 years ago, I was told that I have diabetes, but I was on the low high. So that was a good thing, because a few years back my mother was diagnosed and she was hospitalized for a week. Hers was very high and she was dehydrated and she had a lot of complications.
I see people continuing to eat unhealthy because they can give themselves a shot to make up for non-exercise and drinking pot. But
I have family members that are diabetic, so I kind of understand the disease. I also work in the healthcare division. I'm a family healthcare advisor, and so I have a lot of clients that are diabetic. So I work with nurses and doctors to help get medications, to help get the supplies that they need.
I have several family members that acquire diabetes later in life, which probably by diet and exercise would have been preventable had they realized that the diet, that the Appalachian diet that we typically eat was causing such a thing with all the high carbohydrates and fats, and a lack of regular exercise probably was preventable, which led to a lot of other medical problems.
So I live with a diabetic. I'm a diabetic myself, but I'm not as bad as she is. I'm borderline diabetic. But her diabetes is so bad that she has to take 4 shots a day. So it's actually fear that, fear that she could lose her eyesight or lose kidney functioning, fear that I might even lose her to diabetes.
I'd like to just spend a few minutes talking about the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Many times people get these terms confused. In the past, type 1 diabetes was often called juvenile diabetes and often occurred in children or folks under 20 years old. We still see the same or very similar pattern today. In fact, when we talk about those with type 1 diabetes, we're usually talking about 4 to 6% of the people who have diabetes that actually have been diagnosed with type 1.
Because the reality here in Morgan County is that I was the only diabetic child. There were many, many elderly individuals who had what we now know of as type 2 diabetes, but I was an anomaly. And so teachers didn't really know what to do with me, and that was a challenge, and I felt very loved in my family, but I felt very isolated.
Type 2 diabetes is the one of greater concern today. In fact, probably 94 to 95% of the people that have diabetes have type 2. Type 2 diabetes is a disease that we generally would see in much older people. In fact, the older we get, the higher risk we are for this disease. But today we're seeing type 2 diabetes being diagnosed in people much younger. In fact, 20s, 30s, and even some young people still in their teens are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. This is of great concern because if you have this disease for a long period of time, in other words 15, 20 years, you begin to have complications from that disease. And those complications then can reduce the quality of life one has, and we just have to deal with illnesses and sicknesses that we just do not want to have.
In my own words, diabetes is an autoimmune disease that I think is inherited partially. It can be brought on by poor health conditions, not managing your weight, not eating right, not exercising enough. But I think overall that it is a genetic disease that affects generations.
Now I have clients come in, they say, well, I just discovered that I'm a diabetic. They're 70 years old, so they may have had diabetes for a long time and either didn't realize it, the doctor didn't catch it, it's just mild, that could be borderline.
Very often people are not diagnosed with diabetes until they actually have had the disease, even 5 or 6 years. And many times it's actually the complications that are bringing them to the doctor. In other words, they may be having headaches that don't go away, which could be a symptom of high blood pressure, or maybe they're having difficulty seeing, or maybe they're noticing that they're not feeling the ends of their fingers or their toes like they used to feel. And those are all indicating that there are some side effects occurring that go with type 2 diabetes.
Well, being overweight has tripled in young people in the last few years. It's doubled in adults and it's tripled in young people. And our county is no exception. And, like I said before, every pound increases the work on the pancreas to produce the insulin so that all the cells can have fuel. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Type 2 is preventable. Maybe not in every case, but in many of the cases. In fact, the majority of cases of type 2 can be prevented by maintaining our appropriate weight and staying active all through our lifetime.
I have no clue. I know that it can be like, onset when you're little, and I know that it's a progressive thing, like usually it starts out with high blood pressure, high cholesterol. It seems like it just goes in that stage, and that's like the end result of all of that.
Okay.
Because I noticed that a lot of people who have diabetes have those other maladies.
Family history, heart disease, silence.
When Lloyd was first diagnosed, and heavens, I don't even know how long ago it was, but Grant Stevenson was still in practice. He was our physician then. And Grant told Lloyd, he said, this is one of the worst diagnoses that you can have. It's one of the worst things to have. And when you aren't feeling the effects of it, you don't realize that, at a cellular level in your body, it's doing damage. And by the time you feel it, which has taken Lloyd, it's probably been a good 20 years, maybe. It's been at least 15. He has only, I think, really started taking his diabetes seriously in about the last 3 or 4 years. But it's been since he started having neuropathy, problems with his feet and walking, and feeling in his feet. And his medications got upped from just a pill to now insulin. And it's only been when it's, and I know already, we're at a place where damage has already occurred. What you do by doing the proper treatment, and especially I wish had started earlier, is you at least delay or defer or can stop some of the damage that diabetes will do, or at least keep it under control. But it's going to happen, and especially if you don't take care of your diabetes or do the things that the doctor says.
It's a silent thing. Since you don't feel bad, since you don't have at first a pain, you don't have a pain in your stomach, or your legs are hurting, or you have an acute symptom, then it's silence.
Devastating, kind of, because of what it can do to your body. You can go blind, or kidney failure, or heart attack, or stroke, or just a lot. It affects your whole body.
I think it's a scary word. In my generation, I've seen it getting a lot worse, and I feel like for the next generation, it'll be even worse than it is now.
Here lately, I think about how more often we're hearing of it, especially with our students. We have several that have got pretty severe cases right now, and so I'm hearing more of it. So when I hear it, that's what I think right now is how more often that I'm hearing of it.
It's a life-changing illness. It really is, because it's not like some of the other illnesses that, with heart disease and different things. Some of those can be more treatable with procedures and different things. And with diabetes, it's really life-changing.
I think of it as an awful, incurable disease that affects a lot of people. And it's been around, like my uncle who has diabetes said when I called him to try to get him to come here. It's been around here since the Egyptians. Why haven't they found the cure for it yet?
Worse than cancer. That's what my initial diagnosing doctor said and wrote to me.
My mother told me that I would have to start watching what I ate, and you have to lose weight, you have to start exercising, and just, because you don't want to end up on medication like her mother was.
What did you say?
We'll see.
Well, sugar, I think that's, been around for so long, they've called it sugar, that's the first thing I think.
For the most part, problem with eating too much sugar, and my uncle was always diabetic, so we had to have shots and stuff. So that's kind of what comes to my mind.
I know that a lot of problems that you can have if you are a diabetic, the heart problems and vision problems and other problems, that you can have, that I really don't want to get into if I can keep out,
Well, I think it's something that under certain conditions can be controlled, but in today's society with processed foods and all that, I think it makes it more difficult than ever. And most people that have it try to control it, but it's difficult to do.
If I get out and get out of the house when I'm not snacking all the time, I go to the golf course and play golf and different things. I come back, it may be anywhere from mid-80s to the 90s.
I think probably one of the first things, I think we were talking about prevention, is that it is pretty much a preventable disease in most cases, in a lot of cases. And I think that's probably what comes to mind.
It's a family disease because we spend our time together within a household. We all eat the same food that's brought into the home. And we have traditions and celebrations and rituals that we share. And those things are the things that often make us more inclined to have higher risk for diabetes within our families. If you're a person that has type 2 diabetes, then chances are there's other people in your family or even in your household that have it also.
Stay away from a lot of the foods that raise you. And I actually started doing this before I was a diabetic. The friend I had, we went fishing a lot and did a lot of things. When we'd eat out, he had to watch it. I kind of watched too while I was there.
It's really important for us to begin thinking about how it is we eat. How much food are we eating? I know if I go to a restaurant, they often serve me a platter. And that platter is supposed to be for one person. And realistically, if I eat all of that, I probably have consumed enough calories for my entire day, and maybe even a little extra. And so we have to think about the foods that we're eating, and unfortunately, many young people today really don't know how to cook.
When I got it in serving sizes, if you just did a half of a cup of beans, 1 piece of cornbread, and a 5-ounce serving of potatoes, it equaled 24 grams of carbohydrates. So you're talking about small portions, but it is something that if you want that typical meal that you could have.
When we think about managing diabetes, it really is a number of things you have to watch for. Certainly eating the right foods, eating the right portion size, avoiding very sugary products and things that are high in carbohydrates are important. But there's other things too one needs to be careful about. For instance, do you go to the doctor and see them regular? Being active. It's very important that we exercise and get some vigorous activity every day.
Really, probably the biggest things is we do have a community where it's easier to drive than it is to walk. Not really a lot of bike paths. Now, it's not to say we don't have a lot of places to bike. It's just we just don't have that type of community. We get in our cars and we drive wherever we're going to go. So probably the biggest risk factors would be, again, our eating habits. There's so much fast food here. So many people eat out. Lack of exercise. So poor diet and lack of exercise, just to sum it up.
I think the biggest part of it is probably just lifestyle. Especially here with children, or just people in general, their activity levels have really dropped off. Just kind of going back to the whole school thing here with my wife, an example. She's a K-3 teacher, and the kids are lucky to have gym maybe once, twice a week. I know when I was a kid, we had gym or recess 5 days a week. kids aren't active anywhere near as much as what they used to. I remember when I was a kid, Mom would literally kick me outside and said, "Don't come home till the sun goes down. I don't want to see you anywhere near the house. I just cleaned it."
We also need to think about medication. Now, everyone that has type 2 diabetes doesn't always take medicine. Some people can monitor their disease and manage it very well by the foods that they eat and by the exercise that they do.
I took care of it for maybe 10 years with diet and exercise before I went back on medication.
Another thing that people don't think about very often is taking care of their eyes, going to the dentist. There's a very great body of knowledge growing that if you have poor oral or dental care, that you may be also at higher risk for diabetes or for complications related to that. We do know also that type 2 diabetes can lead to complications, and those complications might be something like high blood pressure, a heart attack, a stroke, even cancer. People with diabetes are at higher risk.
So many times you want to think, I won't be able to see, or I may, my kidney, or, all these different things. And no one had said to me, with diabetes, you have the risks for other illnesses. And as it turns out, I actually have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is quite common in women with diabetes. And so that led in part to the insulin resistance. And then ultimately, I just found out about a year or so ago that I have celiac disease, which is also very closely related to diabetes. And all of those crazy things mixing together, we feel now, are what contribute to the insulin resistance. So just a traditional treatment plan of checking your blood sugar and utilizing insulin.
My mother did have diabetes, and she passed away with colon cancer, but obviously she did have diabetes also.
One of the things that's been really made clear over the last few years through research and study is that if we prevent type 2 diabetes, we often are also preventing all of those other complications that might come from it. So this is a very good reason for us to really be much more concerned about our lifestyles.
We have these amazing bodies, and they overcome awful things. I mean, the men who have been in wars and have lost limbs and have learned to walk with prosthetics, the body has an amazing ability to cure itself. But we have to make some choices about what we're doing to it for it to be able to kind of clean up what we're hurting it with.
I remember at first I tried really hard to stay exactly with my diet and everything. And then I got real discouraged and depressed, I guess. And I'm sure a lot of people do. And I'm like, this is for a lifetime. I don't want to be this way for a lifetime. And it's not as easy as people think. You want to sit and eat with people, and because it is social. And also there's that aspect of food for comfort. Now, I'm a comfort food person. And my granddaughter that's having trouble with her weight, she's the same way. And you start thinking, I don't want to have to live this way the rest of my life. So I'm just going to eat what I want. And I think that is one of the biggest, I always have thought that was one of the biggest battles for people with diabetes is the emotional aspect. And I don't think people address that like they should.
I have a time with mine, it can spike or it can drop all of a sudden. So, and it kind of has me on edge, afraid someday it's going to happen out in public, in which it has once. So it's kind of embarrassing, but you can't help it.
How hard it is to take care, to cook for them and everything. It really is. And my sister, she has type 1. So she really has a hard time. And my husband has the type 2. He does really good, but when he first found out he had it, he just swore he didn't have diabetes. And he got hurt, he got his finger hurt, and it was high. We really had a time for a while. But I went to a nutritionist, and that helped, you know, a lot. But you always have to be prepared for something to happen.
When I see patients that are newly diagnosed, the denial is the biggest factor. Like, well, I know so-and-so had this and they didn't have any problems, or I feel fine, so I may have this, but it doesn't affect me. And I think just admitting that, yes, they have this and that they personally need to acknowledge that and take control of it is huge, because that's the first step in realizing that they need to make those lifestyle choices.
Just learning portion controls is one thing. That's a hard thing to learn, especially in this area where we cook. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and when I got married the first time, I couldn't cook for 2 people. I didn't know how. I'd try, and I always fixed way too much.
Eating habits, cooking, but it made it easier. For about 2 weeks I was trying to cook for him and then fix what I could eat. And then after he was diagnosed, then I realized now I can fix one meal and we both can eat it. So that the diet has been the big thing with him.
My highest weight was 479 pounds. And today I've lost 219 pounds. And I'm still losing weight today. Exercise is one thing, but the biggest thing I believe is what you eat. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to watch your sugar intakes and your carbs, and there's all kinds of little things you can do to change.
But I try to watch what I eat, especially my portions, and take my medications.
I manage mine through what I eat. I try not to eat very many sweets. I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes with my second child, and that was 13 years ago. And doctor told me just to watch what you eat, you know, don't drink a lot of pop and don't eat a lot of concentrated sweets, and that seemed to help. And while I was pregnant, I lost weight, but they thought I was sick, but I wasn't. I was actually feeling better than I felt in a long time. And then since then, it just seems to be back into old habits of, you know, eating things I shouldn't and that kind of thing. But it's very hard to turn things down when you have this craving in your brain saying eat more sugar, and then your body don't need it, but your brain thinks it does.
You do everything you're supposed to do, and it just some days doesn't work. And that's when you have to realize it's not as simple as counting your carbohydrate. You need to know what kind of carbohydrate that is. Are you getting your protein in with that? And it's not as simple as just high or low blood sugar.
I think we need to be re-taught. I mean, it's a cultural thing, of course, in Appalachia. The kind of food I grew up on, which we always thought was healthy, is not. So people need to be re-taught what healthy food is. And I think the new plate, I like that. I think that's a good, easy picture to understand how much of what you need to eat. And talking with my own children, my daughter especially, I know she doesn't really eat a well-balanced diet. I look at her meals, she'll kill me for saying this, but it's just a large number of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to be retaught. I think part of it's a lack of knowledge, part of it's probably convenience. I know there's times when I had my kids at home that we ate wrong just because it was fast and convenient.
Education, I think, is one of the biggest things, is if we can educate people on, especially like I said, that type 2 is a preventable, you know, with your lifestyle, with the things you eat. If you have family risk factors, then staying on top of getting screened, different things like that really make a difference.
In this project, we're working with diabetes coalitions from each county. We've had some training sessions for the coalitions. We have county liaisons who are working with the coalition and working with the Center for Appalachian Philanthropy here in Ohio, where I'm based out of, and we're making some progress. The coalitions are a way that local people can work with other local people. This is the only way it's going to get done. We have to work with each other. We have to support one another. If we don't hold hands, join forces together, nobody is coming to help us to do this. I often use the term citizen action. And to me, citizen action is all of us working together to make a difference in the place that we live. We have to do it ourselves. And so we need you as an important link in that big chain that ties our community together and fights this silent killer of type 2 diabetes.
It's our society. It is. But I will say this for the Extension Office and all the programs they have, they always try to make some things that are for diabetics.
Mm-hmm.
Every program they have,
Mm-hmm.
Mel tries to make. And she made some really good food.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't taste so bad after
No,
all.
no, those. And I know that they do it for the kids, and
Right.
they have their little programs here and stuff. So, that's the way of teaching.
Sure.
I'd say it's surprising. It's surprising how satisfied you can feel after one of those meals, because when they set the plate in front of you, you look at it, that's never going to fill me up. But yet, when we go out of there, we're satisfied. So I guess that was the biggest surprise for me, was seeing just how little of food you really need to be satisfied.
And what's the main thing for
Well, that as well as new recipes. The recipes are always printed out for us. I have tried a couple. Anita gave me another website to go to with 9,000 diabetic recipes. I'm going, yes!
We're trying to get parks developed in each one of our magisterial districts in order that people can go there and safely exercise, because we have such curvy roads. And so we're trying to get more people interested in doing that, and write grants to get the funds and so on like that. And we need to educate the people, the parents especially, more, and get families out moving together, enjoying all the beautiful surroundings and having family fun again.
Probably the churches are going to be your best place to disseminate information to the congregation. They're pretty much a captive audience, because they go to church. Everybody goes to church. Sundays today, you don't find anyone at home. They go to church. So I think that would be the best place to try to get information out, through the pastors, through the churches, they have something called Minnesota County Ministerial Alliance. That would be a good place to get information out. Even the children, you can start in school, talking to the teachers, talking to the counselors. All of those people who have some kind of control over what the children eat and what they do, I think those would be your best bet to contact people like that and get information out to them, that they can get it out into the community.
Involved as I am in the community, and I've been in the community, involved in the community for, I'll go back to my Pee Wee football and baseball coaching years, so that's been about 25, 30 years. And it seemed as though we tried to push our community to get involved with the other community, and it's just so hard. It seemed like everywhere I go, it seemed like I'm the only one of our community. Mm-hmm. And we tried to, even in churches, in some community activity, outside groups or outside activities, we try to emphasize, participating and networking with our counterparts, if you will. And it's hard, try to get them involved.
We work with the school nurses closely in Scioto County, and more, I used to be a school nurse. In '89, I had one child who was a diabetic for the 6 years that I was there. And now each of our school nurses has several diabetics in each building that they're working with, and the number just continues to go up.
I think that it can be done by way of meeting with churches, having people from various hospitals come out and test them to make them aware of what it really is. Mm-hmm. And it's something that can change your life around if it's addressed. Mm-hmm. And I think through that, there are a lot of times when people do come to churches, they come to communities with various testing, and when there's various testing going on, you should go out and be tested. And I think the church is a great vehicle to touch certain people. And I know some friends of mine who have come out from various hospitals and have had tests, and people have found out that they've had various things wrong with them. And I think that's a great way to do it. I think that when you have people who can go to various clubs, such as Rotary, Kiwanis, and things of that nature, just spread the word by way of social clubs, and getting people together, just make them aware that they should be tested.
Yeah, I think we need more education on it. I think the community does everywhere, even our schools. I think we should in our schools.
The Extension Office does some things with trying to educate, on meal planning and cooking, but there's just they're just reaching a smaller audience, I guess you'd say. Well, we do parent workshops. The Family Resource Center does. We could always do a workshop. The problem with that is only a small portion of people will come. We've got, you could say, an audience of, say, 550, and when we have a workshop, we may have 30. So you're just reaching so very few of them.
But I have taken a lot of classes for my diabetes and on how to eat, what I need to eat, and the different things, to help my body to get better and stronger all the time. And I think the weight loss support groups has helped a lot. We've been having meals this month every Wednesday night, and the meals is great. And there people needs to check into more of that, eating healthier. I mean, instead of going in and grabbing you a bottle of pop and a bag of potato chips, get you a glass of water or a bottle of water and maybe a big piece of fruit or something.
Most people, if they need to go and get the exercise, if you are overweight or whatever, it's hard to go into a group out into the public, and especially when you're out of shape. There are very few beginners programs out there. You have to join a group or an exercise class, whatever, that people have been in there for years. They do it, and you're just starting, and you don't have that stamina. Of course, you're probably breathing and red-faced and wheezing within the first 5 minutes. And there's people up there who don't have an extra 50 or 60 pounds that they're bebopping around with, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. And then the challenges of, like I have neuropathy, I have it from the knees down. It's embarrassing because sometimes I fall over my own feet because I don't feel what I'm doing. And I don't think there's really offerings out there for special needs. They just assume everybody's healthy if you're going to go to the gym or to a class or whatever.
Clients come to me and they're talking about depression. If you do this, you're going to cure most of the depression in America. If people would eat 3 to 5 servings of fruits and veggies, I only assign 3 during a day. If people would go walk, and cut down on the toxins, and the toxins are, substances, alcohol, any other substances I don't want to get into, and caffeine and nicotine. If they would cut down on those and increase the fruits and veggies, go for a walk at least 30 minutes, only 3 times a week. Come back to me in 2 weeks and we'll see how you're doing. 2 things happen. One is if they don't do it, I know they're not really committed to getting better. They want me to wave a magic wand. And so I'm not going to waste their money or my time. The other thing is if they really have done that, a lot of them feel so much better. They just feel like, they've just turned their lives around. And that's all we do. That's not even getting into all the other stuff. And the other thing is that if they really are still having problems, then I will refer for medications and for doctor care because their system has shut down.
As you can see through the film that you just watched, we have many people in our communities with type 2 diabetes. Many of our friends and neighbors, loved ones, people we care about, and people we don't know so well are living with type 2 diabetes. We need to do more about this disease than we have in the past. It's up to us. We have to make the changes. There's not very much likelihood that a doctor's going to come to town to make the difference. The local hospital can help, but they're not going to solve the problem. It's really about you and me and what we can do as we work together to make some changes. In every county in our diabetes project, we have a diabetes coalition. Some of these coalitions have been around for several years and have done some wonderful work in the counties. Many times people don't even know they're there. We need to strengthen these coalitions. We need you. We need you to come and to get involved and to be part of this work. Learning about the disease and talking to one another, teaching one another. Diabetes truly is a family matter. It is something that we need to focus on. It's our family health routines that often get us into this problem of high diabetes risk. And it's changing those routines within our families and our neighborhoods and our communities, our churches, our schools, that's going to make a difference. I'd like to encourage you to become part of your local diabetes coalition. Find out what they're doing. See how you can get involved. We need you to take part.
Grandpa used to tell some big old tales about barn raising, hay season, working on the farm. Spoke of folks joining hands, working side by side. Honest labor, shared local favors, and getting done what needed done. Everyone was family. He often said, I do believe we need each other. If we can work together, we can be the change we need to see. Grandma, she told fancy stories too, about washing, drying, spring house cleaning too. Spoke of women's gatherings and quilting bees. Honest labor, shared local favors, getting done what needed done. Everyone was family. She often said, I do believe we need each other. If we can work together, we can be the change we need to see. Grandpa often spoke of daily chores, about long walks to school with everyone. Spoke of little idle time cause local tasks needed done. Honest labor, shared local favors, getting done what needed done. Everyone was family. He often said, I do believe we need each other. If we can work together, we can be the all the change we need to see. Grandma told of hoeing gardens early in the day,